died of Prince. You know, people were, she's so lucky. Yeah, damn right I was lucky.
If you live through this, please swear that I will die for you. And if you live through this, please swear that I will die for you. Live Through This, the second studio album from Hole. And this album, which was highly successful for the band, was released on April 12th, 1994. Courtney's husband, Kurt Cobain, had died in tragic circumstances just 1 week earlier, on the 5th of April. Love was married to Cobain from 1992 to 1994, and they both had a daughter together, Frances Bean Cobain. So when the album was released, the title, Live Through This, took on a whole different meaning.
He could be a real grumpy bastard, but that was part of his power. You know, without saying a word, he could make the whole room feel like it. You know, and he also had an intense narcissism, like, you're coming to me.
Yeah.
But he also didn't have one atom of rock star ego, and he needed it. He didn't give himself enough credit. I mean, he knew he was the shit. At the same time, he didn't give himself.
Hole had released their first album, Pretty on the Inside, in 1991. The album was very rough and raw, and after its release, Hole still remained relatively unknown in the music world. But Live Through This was a complete turnaround. Courtney said, "I want this record to be shocking to the people who don't think we have a soft edge, and at the same time that we haven't lost our very, very hard edge." This resulted in a less aggressive sound, blending more structured melodies and smoother arrangements with heavy guitar riffs. By December of '94, the record had gone gold, having sold a total of 500,000 copies, and went platinum 6 months later for having sold 1 million copies.
I really respect your music, and I think it's really angry and loud, and that's what teenagers like.
But the tragedy that we mentioned before with the death of Kurt Cobain was not the only tragedy to occur at around the time of the album's release. Kristen Pfaff, Hole's bass player, just 27 years of age, died on June 16, 1994, just 2 months after the album had been released. It was said Pfaff had died of an overdose. And Live Through This would be the only Hole record that she would play on. So Courtney releases this amazing album, this very successful album, and just like that, she loses 2 people very close to her, her husband and her bandmate, both aged just 27.
It was a terrible thing. Yeah, I mean, this great record comes out, and then all this
Well,
awful
I'm not
stuff
psychic,
comes
but
around.
my lyrics are.
Yeah.
You know, and now, you know, it's, I mean, people go back to work. This is what I do. I got to make a living, and I think I do a pretty good job at it. And
So you want to talk about a really tragic irony of an album title? You call your album Live Through This, and then your husband and your bass player dies? Yeah, talk about live through this, right? And it's just a real sad thing, really, that tragedy surrounds that record, because it is a good rock record. There's some really good songs on there. This was a huge step up for Hole from their first album. Kristen Pfaff really shines here on this album with her vocal harmonies, her talent as a bass player, and it's a very good record to listen to. But it has been stated at one point or another that Courtney Love had help from Kurt Cobain writing the songs on the record. Now, that is only a rumor. One thing that is true, however, Kurt did sing on the album, just backing vocals. Cobain visited the band in studio before Nirvana were set to tour to promote In Utero. And while there, the band invited him to sing backing vocals on several tracks. So Kurt is known to have provided the backing vocals to the 2 songs Asking For It and Softer Softest. However, producer Paul Koderi stated that Cobain sang on about 5 or so tracks in total. Probably Violet, Miss World, and Doll Parts. I can't remember any of the others. And speaking to the rumors that Kurt had actually written the songs on Live Through This, Love stated first in 1998, "All this time I have never addressed this, but here I am finally saying for the very first time that Kurt did not write Live Through This. His skills were much better than mine at the time. The songs would have been much better. That's the first thing. I wanted to be better than Kurt. I was really competing with Kurt, and that's why it always offends me when people would say, 'Oh, he wrote Live Through This.' I'd be proud as hell to say that he wrote something on it, but I wouldn't let him." And Petty Schemmel, Hole's drummer and friend of Kurt, said, "There is that myth that Kurt wrote a lot of our songs. It's not true. Eric Erlandson and Courtney wrote Live Through This."
I think that Courtney is like one of the most amazing guitar players out there. I mean, you know, she has like a really unique sense of rhythm. She plays really hard, and actually I've learned a lot from her as a guitarist.
Live Through This was the band's most successful record that they released. Commercially, it did very well for them. The 4 singles were very successful for the band: Miss World, Doll Parts, Violet, and Softer Softest. But Courtney would not be able to enjoy any of this success, really, with all the tragedy that was happening around her at the time of the album's release.
I mean, he prayed every night. He taught our daughter how to pray. One thing that when I would, verbally we would pray out loud, is for him to love himself.
Yeah. Why couldn't he, do you suppose?
Maybe he was terminally pouting. I don't know. I don't know.
If you live through this with me,